Welcome back to the channel, guys. Behind me are two of my dirt bikes, and in this video I'm going to do a little bit of maintenance, some oil changes, clean the air filters, just do a once over on both the bikes. This is a 1998 KX125. It actually needs a water pump rebuild. As you can see, this oil looks like milk. It's pure white, so there's some coolant leaking into the crankcase here. So I think it's a water pump issue that I'm going to take care of. And this bike here, this is a 2004 Honda CRF 250R. This is my baby right here. This one just needs a little bit of maintenance. Like I said, air filter cleaned, oil change, double check the coolant's okay, lube up the chain, things like that. So without further ado, we're going to get right to it. So stick with us. All right, to start, we got some air filter cleaner, we got some spray on air filter oil, we got crankcase oil, some chain lube, we got a bucket of warm water here. This is for the air filter. What we're gonna do is we're gonna submerge it and squeeze it a bunch and get all the oils and stuff and dirt out of the air filter. And then this is really important, make sure you let the air filter completely dry 100% before you add the spray on oil. That is very important. You don't want a wet filter and spray on this oil that's supposed to be tacky and sticky and catch all the dirt when there's water on the fibers, because then this stuff will not stick to those fibers and it really can blow up your engine. So you don't want sand in the engine, you don't want to put oil on a wet filter. So that's the tip of the day for me. But like I said, on this one, we're just going to go ahead and do some maintenance to it. What we're going to start with is pulling the seat off, and all we need for that is a 12mm socket. It's just 2 bolts here, and then this should lift up. That should expose the air filter. We can take the wing nut off the air filter and remove that. We're also going to lube up the chain. I did already lube it one time. That's why you can see the oil dripping off the tire here, but it has been sitting all winter. So, you know, I sprayed it down one time, and I'm probably going to go through and spray it down one more time just to kind of penetrate through everything and make sure the O-rings are lubed up. And then I think from there we're going to drain the oil, which is also a 12mm drain plug, and just kind of inspect the oil, see what it looks like, make sure it doesn't look terrible, and then we're going to refill it up with oil, and this one should be good to go. I am going to hit this air filter with a little bit of this cleaner. This can help dislodge some of the stuck on grime and dirt. I'm going to go ahead and hit this from the inside out and make sure it's nice and clean. Now I'm going to bring this to the water bucket and dunk it once again and make sure that everything is out of the air filter. As you can see, the air filter is much cleaner than it was before, inside and out. This is what it should look like. You know, aside from dunking it in the water and agitating everything and wringing it out, it is a good idea to take a water hose and spray from the inside out to finish clearing up any leftover debris that might be in here or leftover cleaner that might be in here. So that's what I'm going to do right now. And this air filter is ready to be dried. So right here we're just removing the 12mm drain plug. I can see some oil coming out. It actually looks pretty good. It's not black. It's not milky like the KX. This oil actually looks pretty good. There's no metal shavings in it, no metallic-y substance, which you typically do see with a wet clutch design. I like to stay on top of my oil changes for this bike. Okay, I literally can't remember where I put the drain plug. I'm such a space cadet. I'm gonna have to look back in the footage and find out where I put this drain plug. I was sitting here rewatching my video, and then I looked over here and found where I put the drain plug. Silly me. So at this point, we're gonna reinstall the drain plug. Make sure you don't over tighten these. It's really not worth having to rebuild a engine over a strip drain plug. And that goes with cars too. Torque it to spec. In some cases you will need to replace the oil filter. That is just these two bolts here. You remove it. It's a little paper filter that goes in there. This is the first oil change since I replaced that filter, so I'm not going to replace it this time. But just be aware that sometimes you do need to replace this oil filter, and normally I would, but this time I'm not going to. All you have left to do is refill the oil to the right capacity. If I remember correctly, it's about 7/10 of a quart on this dirt bike. There is a dipstick, so I'm gonna go ahead and start with about half and then check it. It's pretty simple. You just pour the oil in. In this particular case, I'm using 10W40. It's designed and formulated for wet clutches. Add a little more there. Should be pretty close. Now when you check these dipsticks, what you want to do is stick the dipstick in and don't thread it in. You want to just stick it in there and see where the oil level's at. You definitely want to make sure the bike is on a level surface. And this bike is basically right where I want it. As far as the oil change goes, that's all there is to it. Aside from changing the filter from time to time, that's all there really is to an oil change on a dirt bike. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start this dirt bike, and I'm going to double check that the oil level is good after it warms up, and that should be that. The next thing I'm going to do is move on to the air filter, and hopefully it's dry by now and I can go ahead and hit it with that spray on oil, and this bike should be done. Okay, moving on to the KX. It's basically the same process. What I'm going to do is take the fill plug out, and then I'm going to pull the drain plug and let all of this milk drain out. Normally what you want to do before an oil change is start the bike, let it warm up to operating temperature, and then drain it to get all of the excess oils out of the bike that would be in the clutch and things like that. So when it warms up, it's thinner and it will drain down faster. In this case, I have coolant mixed with my oil, and I definitely don't want to bring it up to operating temperature with water inside of the oil. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna drain this milk out of here. I'm gonna refill it with some oil, and then I'm gonna bring it up to operating temp, and hopefully it will get whatever remaining milk is inside of there, and that will drain out on the second drain. So that's the plan for the KX. And like I said before, it's basically the same exact process as the Honda 250 over there. We're just doing it on a different bike. In this instance, it's a 14mm socket. We need to get this milk out of this crankcase here. Oh, look at that. Looks like Elmer's glue. Like I said, I'm going to add more engine oil to it to the correct level. I'm going to start it up, let it warm up, and re-drain it again. Should probably go get some shoes on. Alright, now that I got it warmed up, I've decided to do the work on this dirt bike on my deck. I just feel like it'd be easier to keep the bike upright. I don't have any stands, and the things I used to use to hold the bikes up are being used for something different right now. So as of right now, I'm gonna go ahead and start taking apart this clutch cover, the water pump. I gotta remove the exhaust all the way back to here, remove the seat, remove this plastic, remove the Kickstarter, and then basically from there I just need to start taking things apart. So, you know, that's what we got to do. So that's what I'm going to get started on. All right, now that I'm set up, the first thing I'm going to do is drain the oil back out of the crankcase here. So that's step one. I'm gonna go ahead and apologize for my neighbor's dog. They just basically lock him outside 24/7. So he's gonna be barking throughout this whole video, unfortunately. The next step is to remove the plastic here. Now what I'm going to do is remove the muffler. I just realized that's not a muffler, that is a silencer. So I removed the silencer. The next step here is to remove the expansion chamber. For this part of the expansion chamber, you just need a pair of pliers to release these springs here, and then this should pop right out of here. The next part I'm going to do is remove the Kickstarter. Next I'm going to remove the foot brake. Next, I'm gonna remove the coolant hose and the water pump cover. After that, I'm gonna remove this cover. What is that? I don't know if you just saw that, but this bolt was all the way backed out. Next, I'm going to crack loose the water pump bolt. Sometimes there is a washer in here. You definitely want to make sure you keep that washer. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it definitely looks like this seal right here has failed. It's not holding real tight to the shaft here. And being that there's coolant moving through here and on the other side of this is oil, I'm pretty sure that this is what my issue is, which makes me very happy because I don't work on bikes every day. And I was just doing some Google research, and I had just replaced the head gasket and the whole top end of this bike, and it was really hard for me to believe that the head gasket had failed. And upon finding this information, it made the most sense that this water pump seal thing on either side of this case is most likely the culprit of why this oil and coolant is mixing. Again, I apologize for this dog. Next step is going to be to remove the bolts for the power valve cover. At this point, we're ready to remove the remaining case cover bolts. Well, now that I have the case off, that's pretty much going to do it for this episode. Unfortunately, I don't have the parts to put this back together tonight, but they are on the way. I ordered them a couple days ago, so they should be here tomorrow probably. So I'm going to leave everything out here as is, and when the parts get in, we're going to go ahead and replace this seal. And then there's also a seal on the back side of here. You have to remove the water pump shaft and press in new seals, and I think a bearing as well. So once we get those parts in, we'll jump right back into it, and we'll get this hot rod up and going again. This is one of my favorite bikes to ride. It's very light, nimble, and it's just a really good bike. It's always started on the first or second kick, so I want to keep it on the road as much as possible. So until the next episode, when we put this thing back together, have a good one.